Dear students, welcome to my lecture. So, I would like to introduce myself. So, I am Dr. Anjaiah, working as professor in Department of Computer Science Engineering, St. Peter's Engineering College. Today, I would like to teach subject is cryptography and network security. Under this, the topic is Kerbores version 4. So, this Kerbores version is basically implemented for authentication service. So we will see in detail how this Kerbores version is implemented. So now before going to that, so just first of all, we would like to see how the user authentication will be implemented. So what actually the means of user authentication, where this authentication will be deployed. So what is the necessity of authentication, right? Different type of scenarios, we will see how authentication is deploying and why the requirement of authentication for today's concern. Now coming to here, there are the following diagram will shows the following table. So it depicts the complete scenario of how authentication requirement, what actual authentication, how it deploys. So this is a scenario you can see with the help of this table. So now here, so if you see this first one, so basically, this entire authentication comprises four scenarios. There are four general means of authenticating user identity, which can be used alone or in combination. So either it may be a separate alone or combination of some others who can get the authentication. Now here, if you see the first scenario, something individual knows. So this is the first scenario. Example include a password, a personal identification number, PIN, or answers to a pre-arranged set of questions. So this is the for individual concern. And next coming to something individual possesses. So in these examples include cryptographic keys, electronic key cards, smart cards, and physical keys. So this is referred to as a token. And next third scenario, you can go for this something the individuals is. So static biometrics. So that is examples include recognition of fingerprint, retina, and face. So these are all static biometric parameters. Now coming to here, fourth one is that is something the individual does. Dynamic biometrics. Dynamic biometrics examples include recognition of voice pattern, handwriting, characteristics, and typing rhythm. So these are all dynamic biometrics. Here we have seen the four scenarios how the authentication verifies, right? So in order to get some particular service, we required first authentication. So this is the four scenarios of how authentication is deployed. So now coming to here, for network-based user authentication, the most important method involve cryptographic keys and something individuals. So this is very very important. For network-based authentication, we required cryptographic keys, right? So individual passwords. This is the very very primary concern, primary issue for the network-based authentication. We'll see in detail. So now first, the mutual authentication. So what actually mutual authentication? How it deploys? Protocols which enable communicating parties to satisfy themselves mutually about each other's identity and to exchange session keys. Now here, keys will play a key role here. Session keys. Session wise, we are going to supply the key. With the help of the key only, we are going to identify the authentication. Now here, the following circles will shows how the authentication, how they are exchanging, right? So we'll see in detail. Now initially, if you go for this first circle, timelines. So in this, what are the aspects? So timelines in this, what happens is important because of the threat of message replies, right? If suppose if you are transferring the message from sender to, right, sender to receiver, so in this case, if any replies of message, so in this case, what are the various threats? So we require to maintain a within the short span of time, that is the timelines. Now here we see the first scenario, and next point is such replies say could allow an opponent, right? So whether we can allow or not. Next, compromise the session key. Next, successfully impersonate another party. Next, disrupt operations by presenting parties with message that appear genuine but are not. So these are the all timeline factors, so which we are going to influence on mutual authentication. So there may be chances for all these. Each and every point will play a key role. Now sometimes the sender may reply the message, right? So and sometimes you may allow opponent person. Sometimes session key compromises, right? All these will with respect of timeline basis. And next, coming to here, uh, central to the problem authenticated key exchange and are two issues. Now here, the central problem authenticated key exchange. Now here, this will shows how these two parties are exchanging, how the authentication is verifying, how the key will be exchanging with different two issues. Now confidentiality. The confidentiality. Now here, see, essential identification and session key information must be communicated in encrypted form. Encrypted form. So now here, if you are transforming, if you are exchanging the information, must be communicated in a particular key, with the help of key only, that is called session key here. So the confidentiality is a feature very very important in our network concern. So now here, with the help of this, one encrypted key we required in order to keep, in order to secure an information, we required an encrypted key. Now here, the essential identification and session key information must be communicated through encrypted form. That is the first point in confidentiality. Second point, this requires the prior existence of secret or public key that can be used for this purpose. So this is the second point in confidentiality. So prior existence of secret or public key that can be used for this purpose. Now here, initially, so before transmitting the message, we are going to supply the key, that is primary, the prior existence of secret or public key. Priorly, we are going to transfer the key with encrypted message. So before going to reach the message, we require to send the key. With the help of the key only, we are going to extract the message in computer networks. Whatever we encrypted, the data must be decrypted with the help of key only. That's why priorly we require the key. Once key is okay, then we have to decrypt the message of given encrypted message. Next. So Kerberos. Now coming to here, this is the Kerberos actually. As of now, we have seen only how authentication process involves, right? So now we'll see the Kerberos, what actually the introduction about Kerberos. Authentication service developed as a part of Project Ethin at MIT. So this is a basically Kerberos is a authentication process. So verification process whether the authenticated person is entering into the communicating party or not, right? In the particular environment, if the particular person is an authenticated person only, so they are going to give the service. So that is authentication service. The authentication service deployed actually the project Ethin at MIT. Now coming to here, a workstation cannot be trusted to identify its users correctly or network services, right? A user may gain access to a particular workstation and pretend to be another user operating from that workstation. So this is the cause why we require to this Kerberos version is, a user may gain access to a particular workstation and pretend to be another user operating from that workstation. That means, so if that if in this scenario there are some cases will be there. If suppose one particular user may gain access from particular workstation, and another user also operating his own service from another workstation, this is a chance. That's why we require this authentication process. And now coming to here, the second point is, a user may alter the network address of a workstation so that the request sent from the altered workstation to appear to come from the impersonated workstation. Now here, so initially the instead of original workstation, the person who is going to communicating, right? So instead of the original workstation, another workstation, the person, they may alter the message. They may be impersonated the mother address. So that is the scenario here in second case. And now we'll go for third. A user may eavesdrop on exchange use of reply of attack to gain entrance to a server to disrupt operations. So this is also maybe a user may eavesdrop means you may disrupt the service. So that means if suppose the original, initially the user is accessing the one workstation, but there is a chance for another person through another workstation, they may disrupt the message. That is the scenario. That's why we require authentication process. So now here, These three scenarios you may expect instead of virtual communication, there is another party may involve, another party may do this type of three scenarios. That's why we require authentication process. Now here Kerberos. The Kerberos provides a centralized authentication server whose function is to authenticate users to servers and servers to users. Now here this Kerberos is very very important. It is centralized authentication server, central authentication server whose function is authenticate user to servers and server to users. This is happens and relies exclusively on symmetric encryption, making no use of public encryption. So this Kerberos basically depends on only symmetric encryption, right? Now here the requirements of Kerberos. Here the first published report on Kerberos listed the following requirement. We require secure, reliable, scalable, transparent. So these are the four important requirements for Kerberos. First one is secure. A network eavesdropper should not be able to obtain the necessary information to impersonate user. So that means we may not disclose to any person, right? The second party they may not store in our data. That is secure. And next will you go for reliable. So should be highly reliable and should be employed distributed server architecture with one system able to back up to another. Reliable means now here we can available anywhere, so it can you can get the backup for another also. If you lost the data, we may lose the data from one place. We may get the backup from another place also. That is a reliable feature. Is deployed in our Kerberos requirements. Next, scalable. Scalables, we know the system should be capable of supporting large number of clients and servers. Now here, so it can extend their physical functionality. That means in Kerberos version, we may fit small type of servers and clients and big type of servers. That means large servers and small clients. That means flexible. That means scalable. We can fit for any type of networks. Like clients are very thin clients and servers are very thick level. So that is here scalable feature. Now coming to here transparent. So ideally the user should not be aware that authentication taking place behind the required to enter a password. Now each and every time we require to know the authentication process verification. Each and every level transparency we have to go into enclose. Each and every level the user can get the passwords. So with the help of that only they can enter the network. So these are the four important requirements for Kerberos. And next Kerberos version 4 now here. So this is the complete Kerberos version 4. So before going to that, we'll see the deployment diagram of how this Kerberos. So initially here how user can interact. So how the where the Kerberos system is deployed. It is basically a special authentication system. And next how the server, so the service provider, right? How we are going to provide a service to the particular client. That is nothing but service provider. Service provider provides the service to the client. So this is the scenarios. Now here we are going to see here three parties are involving initially. So initially client, next Kerberos, next server. So here three types of parties here involving. So this is the basic building block diagram of Kerberos version 4, right? So now we will see in detail what are the various modules. Just we will see. So under Kerberos version we will see the modules. So it makes use of DES to provide authentication service. So now here in this Kerberos version there are three types of modules are very very important. Now here authentication server, right? And ticket and ticket granting server. These three are the very very important modules are available in Kerberos. Authentication server. So AS stands for authentication server, knows the passwords of all user and stores these in centralized database. So each and every user, the password must be kept in centralized database. And next, shares a unique secret key with each server. With each server, it can share the unique key. So that is nothing but authentication server. Next, ticket. Now coming to the next module is ticket. So what actually the role of ticket is created once the authentication server accept the user as authenticate and contain the user's IDs and network address and server IDs. So all these are maintained in the ticket. So created once the created by authentication server, it is authentic. So that contain user ID, network address, and server ID, all these. And next second point is encrypted using the secret key shared by the autonomous authentication server, right? So now here encrypted, the secret key must be encrypted, whatever we're supplying to the client and servers in between. So we are keeping as a secret, that means encrypted using a secret key. Next module is ticket granting server, TGS, who may referred as, issues tickets to user who have been authenticated to authentication server. Each time the user requires access a new service, the client applies to the TGS using the ticket authenticate itself. So each time, so it will be verifies. And next, the TGS grants a ticket for particular service. And next, the client saves each service granted ticket and use its authenticate and serve each and time and particular service is requested. So now here, so we'll see in detail. So while implementing this process, so how these modules will play key role, how they are giving the services, how they are accessing, how they are identifying the network address and user address, how they are deploying the keys, how they are exchanging their encrypted keys. All these three types of modules and their implementation we'll see in detail. So with clear cut examples. Now here, so the version 4, the Kerbores version 4 authentication dialog, how the authentication dialog will be deployed. So now initially, the lifetime associated with the ticket granting, ticket creates problem. Now here, if the lifetime is a very short, example, minute, will be repeatedly asked a password. If the lifetime is long, then the opponent has a greater opportunity for reply. Now here, lifetime play will play key role. That means if ticket granting creates a problem. Why? Because if lifetime is high, there may be a chance for reply of message from opponent. If lifetime is very short, so there is no chance for thefting the data. So now here we have seen, if suppose the lifetime is very short, we may ask the repeated passwords, right? So next, a network service, the TGS or application server must be able to prove that a person using a ticket in the same person whom the ticket was issued. So it can be identified basically network service, the ticket granting, where actually the person, so the particular whom the person is obtained the ticket, so whom to issue. So like these are the factors which will be identified. And servers need to authenticate themselves to users. Now here the servers are very important, they play key role. So now Kerberos is given the completes each and every level authentication process with help of tickets. Now it is the job to server themselves to authenticate multiple server users. Each and every user, whether they having particular ticket ID, all these, everything will be identified by the server job only. Now we would like to see in detail. So now here, so this is the basic building block diagram for Kerberos version 4. So the figure overview of Kerberos, how this Kerberos is consisting, right? So now initially, so we'll go for there are 6 steps. 6 steps are involved in this Kerberos version 4. How they are going to get a service. Now initially we'll go for first step. So users log on to the workstation and request service and host. Next, second step. So authentication server verifies AS. AS means authentication server verifies, right? Authentication server verifies users access right in database, creates ticket granting ticket and session key. Results are encrypted using the key derived from user's password. This is the second phase, second step. Then in third step, workstation promotes user for a password to decrypt incoming message, then send a ticket and authenticate that contains the user's name, network address, and time to TGS. This is the third step. Next, fourth step, TGS, ticket granting service. So decrypts ticket, right? So it decrypts ticket and authenticator verifies the request, then creates tickets for requested application server. It's the fourth step. And fifth step, workstation send the ticket and authenticator to host, And sixth step is host verifies that ticket and authenticator match, then grants access to service. If mutual authentication is required, server returns to an authenticator. Now this is the six steps which are involved in the Kerbores version. Now we will see in detail what happens. So this is the, so initially the user, so this is the Kerbores authentication system, and this is servers. These three parties are involved in here. These three parties, how they are going to exchanging their information and their authentication. So in the process of the six steps, with the help of the six steps, so these three parties are involving and exchanging their keys and exchanging their messages. Now we'll see in detail. Initially, user logs on the workstation, requests service and host. So now initially, the user logs on to this server, right? So he may request from the workstation. So now initially request. So here Kerbores version, what is the job of this Kerbores is here initially. So in when you see this once per user login session, initially when the user is enter into the login process, so initially request, so request ticket granting ticket. Now he is initially request, so the request is goes to Kerbores. Then this Kerbores is reply with help of ticket plus session key. Session key is valid up to few time only, with few minutes only. That is called session key. Now here, so initially this Kerbores allows ticket plus session key, right? So the user is initially request to this Kerbores system, and Kerbores system is allows with help of ticket and session key. So it is replies. Then once again requested service granting ticket. Once again here what happens is user requested, right? Here user requested to granting a ticket, request service granting ticket. That means authentication server. Now here authentication server once again it is having the module of ticket granting server. So what actually this ticket granting server is, so it can grant the particular ticket to the particular client. Now here ticket plus session key. Once again, ticket plus session key is given by the particular authenticated granting server, TGS. We may refer it as a ticket granting server, TGS. But actually the job of TGS is it gives a particular person. Initially, the person is identified by the Kerbores, right? Authentication server. Initially, if the authentication server is verified whether the particular user is authenticated person or not, then only it can grant the ticket. So that is a ticket grant server. So the difference between authentication server and ticket grant server is authentication server what actually is. So initially it verifies of the request of the client with the help of session key. Once if the authentication server is identified as a particular user, right? If he person is authenticated person, then the ticket granting server will give the permission for TGS, that is ticket granting plus ticket plus session key given to this user. So this is once for the type of service. So this is only happens only one per the type of service, once per the type of service, only once time only when you are going to accessing the service one time only. That means now coming to here, so after this, so this request, so now here what happens is in third step, workstation promotes user for password to decrypt incoming messages and send a ticket and authenticator that contains username, network address and time and details. Now here once again, so this user he may get the all these. So with help of this password of encrypted password with session key with network address, then time, right? All these will be ready for this client. Whatever he want to get the service from the workstation, he is going to ready with all these parameters like ticket, right? Ticket and the next network address, username, all these must be ready. And after he is going to request to the service to the server, then server once again it will check, server once again check, it will check whether the particular person is the right person or not, whether he is authenticated person or not, the ticket is correct or not, right? The network address, the name, right? Network address, username, whether all these parameters are correct or not. After verifying only, Host verify the ticket authenticator match, then grant access to service, right? That means once if it is okay, then this server will be replying the service to the user, right? So now here this is the authentication verification process. If once again he may have some little bit confusion, he want to verify once again. If mutual authentication is required, server returns the an authenticator. Once again it can return to the service. So now here what happens is, so the server will play key role here each and every time. So it can verifies whether the particular user having a ticket, particular ticket session, right, with encrypted password and a network address and name, all these after verification of this only the server will provide the service to the user. So this is the complete Kerberos version. So how they are deploying, right? So with the help of the 6 steps, right? There were the 6 steps. This Kerberos version exchanging is mutual authentication process. The authentication process means here verification whether the particular client is seek the service, whether he is a genuine person, whether he is a authenticated person or not. After verifying all this, this system will be allows in order to get the service. So that is about the Kerberos version. So now we'll see with the notation form. So initially, so client authentication now here. So initially what happens is the client authentication server is deployed, ticket granting server is deployed, and service provider. So now here, so these authentication server and ticket granting server is Kerberos method. So these are the two types of uh, modules which are there in Kerberos. So now here, so between client and server, this Kerberos will play key role. Now here, when you see the scenario, so based upon the system and implementation, we have a key identification is here in between client and service server. We require to deploy the Kerberos. So it will give a strong authentication verifications. Now we'll see the client authentication. Initially, client is communicate with the authentication server. So right, so once client is request to the authentication server, the authentication server is shared the key and ticket. So here now shared the ticket, key and ticket. So this key and ticket is also in the encrypted format. So E means encryption, K means key of client. So now K of client, that means key of client comma TGS, ticket grant service. And so now here, so identification of the particular ticket grant servicing server. Then here this authentication service step, right? So this is in first iteration, and this is second iteration, S1 and S2. So right, so this is about regarding the communication between client and authentication server. And next step we'll see ticket granting server. So what actually after the identification of client, whether the client is genuine, right, then ticket granting server is gives the uh, ticket, shared key and ticket. Now here once again the client has to request to this ticket granting server. So now here ticket TGS, server ID and client authentication. After client authentication is verified, then once again TGS, ticket granting server is replies with help of shared key and ticket, right? And next, so now here in third scenario, so ticket and client authentication. Now we are actual after all these process, once authentication server and ticket granting server is given complete authentication to the client. So with help of shared key and ticket and server ID, all these, with help of all these, once again client is request is to the server. Then server is verifies all these factors, whether the particular person is authenticated person or not. So by verifying the database which is already stored in predefined database which is there in server, right, as we discussed initially. So the database itself is contains priorly, right, in the server. So after the verification of this, right, so the service is granted to the client. So this is about regarding how this Kerberos system is implemented. Now, so we will go for this mutual authentication. Now here we have seen few concepts as a mutual authentication. The public key encryption of session key distribution. Now here assumes each of the two parties is in a possession of the current public key of the user. So may not be practical to require this assumption. Now here public key encryption or session key distribution. Now here public key is very very important in mutual authentication. So uh, Denning protocol using timestamps. Now here this is also another scenario. Use an authentication server to provide public key certificate. So authentication server has to must give public key certificates. Requires a synchronization of clocks can need ensure no protocol flaws. So here, just this is the some mutual authentication process. How within the particular time period, how authentication server verifies, right? How protocols we require to know the need of protocols, and next distribution of public key requirement. So the public key must be encrypted. So these are the some required points for mutual authentication. So this is we have seen in Kerbores. And when you see for one-way authentication, for this one-way authentication, have public key approaches for email. Let us take for email. So when we are going to log in the email, so this is called a one-way authentication. Best example, and we are entering this password. So encryption of message for confidential and authentication are both, right? Now here, so the encryption of message for confidentiality authentication are both these 2 points are very very important. Authentication confidentiality is very very important for encryption of any message are both. So for the email verification process. And next for confidentiality, encrypt message with one time secret publicly encrypted. Now here for confidentiality, for authentication, what is the primary motto? So for confidentiality, publicly encrypted compulsory with one time secret key. Whereas authentication, so digital signature may be sufficient. So for authentication process, now authentication and confidentiality is very very important. These two feature are deploying, these two features are deploying a one way authentication process, right? Mutual authentication is different. Mutual authentication, the server it has to give some requirements, but one-way authentication is enough for this confidential and authentication feature. So we have seen this is the now coming together another way of verification, another way of authentication process we have to see, that is called personal identity verification. So personal identity verification, we'll see how this personal identity verification, user authentication based on position of a smart card becoming more widespread, right? As the appearance of credit card as an electronic interface may use a variety of authentication protocols. So this is the personal. You see this personal verification. That means the credit cards, the numbers, right? Any some CVVs, passwords, right? Some dates, expire dates, all these best example for the smart card appearance. And smart card contains with an entire microprocessor, including processor, memory, and I/O ports. We have seen already. We are already aware of this. So small embedded processor will be there in the smart card. So with the help of that only, so we are going to read these all cards. And a smart card includes three type of memories. So read-only memory, that is ROM, and EEPROM, EEPROM, and ROM, RAM, RAM. So that is mean that now coming to here, RAM, ROM, read-only memory, stores data that does not change during the card's life. Once it is written, we may not change the data. That is permanent. That is nothing but ROM. And whereas next EEPROM, that electronic erasable programmable RAM, holds application of data and programs and hold that may vary with time. With the help of based on the time factor, it can hold the programs and data. That is EEPROM. And next RAM, random access memory, holds temporary data generated when applications are executed. RAM, with the help of RAM, only temporary data we are going to deploy. RAM. So now here this is a personal identity verification. So the best example is our smart card, like debit cards, credit cards. All these smart cards are best example for this. These are the different in detail and included process what happens, memory and their structure and the processor, how it stores the data and personal identity verification. And coming to here, so the summary we have seen as of now, the remote user authentication using symmetric encryption. That means mutual authentication or one-way authentication, right? We have seen just now how mutual authentication, one-way authentication we have seen. One-way authentication is best example, and user authentication best example I've seen. And Kerberos means how this motivation of this Kerberos is why we require Kerberos, right? There are four requirements we have seen. So basically, Kerberos is came from MIT process, at the authorization process. Kerberos version 4 we have seen, and personal identity verification. Just personal identity verification we have seen. Uh, Smart cards, all these, so all these comes under authentication process. So how authentication verifies, so how, in order to seek the service from client to server, so how you are going to verify whether the particular client is genuine or not, on what basis we are going to give a service from the server, right? So in order to confirm all these factors, we require all these authentication services. Thank you, one and all.